Hi everybody, today we are taking a look at FTL, which is a Steam game. We are going to be doing a walkthrough of the very first ship that you get, kind of get you started with the game, kind of get you on board with how things are done, and just cover some of the basics. So we're going to take this one as far as we can. We'll eventually go through level by level with each individual ship. You can ultimately pick out the one you like the best and go towards beating the game. So let's go ahead and fire up a new game here. Now everybody is going to have the Kestral to start with, and as you go through and play, you will acquire more ships along the way. So depending on what version of the game you bought, you might start out with more than one ship, depending if you bought any special packages or anything like that. I've unlocked pretty much everything except for this final one here, which I have not gotten to yet. But someday perhaps. So I won't sugarcoat it to start with. The game is notoriously difficult. That's actually part of the fun of the game, because if you're able to just beat the game, that really doesn't really benefit anybody. So the whole point is to essentially beat it like it's an old school Nintendo game. The whole goal is to actually be able to beat the game and brag to your friends and such. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick the standard layout here, and I'm actually going to play on easy. A lot of people are going to play on easy to start with. I definitely recommend playing on easy until you get used to the game, used to the attack mechanics, defense mechanics, and just overall resource management. So I'm not going to bother renaming any of my little crew members. You can do that if you like to. You can rename your ship if you like to. But I don't really get into that. The crew members, you're going to lose them every now and then, so don't get attached to them. And actually, I'll rename a ship here. We'll call it the Darth right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and leave it on easy. And we will go ahead and get started then. So, you can read this little blurb here. It's basically saying what your situation is. You're this kind of, federation. You're trying to, basically survive and get this critical information to your fleet. So, at the core of the game, you're basically going from map to map to map. So, the game is broken down into sectors. There are 8 sectors that you would go through. And the goal is to jump from star to star and collect resources, kill bad guys, and overall level up your ship, so that when you make it to the very end, you can kill the grand mothership. So to cover some of the basics here, you have fuel, you have missiles, you have drone parts. Those are your 3 things of 3 types of currency, as well as your actual currency. So now, depending on what ship you have and what route you're going to go, your currency will be a big factor. So for example, this ship here starts with, I have a missile thing that shoots an actual missile, so I need these missiles here in order to actually use that. And then I have a burst laser, which just requires power to run. I don't have any drones, so I don't need these drone parts. So if you get a chance to sell those, it's not usually a bad idea. And then fuel, we need fuel to jump from system to system. So my general recommendation is try and conserve fuel while still exploring the most number of possible nodes. It doesn't really make sense, or it seems a little bit counterintuitive. But first things first, you want to look to see what's going to be your path to getting out of this particular sector. So if we just look at the nodes attached to the exit, I can approach it from either the top, the bottom, or from the back. So keeping an eye on how much fuel you have. If you don't ever buy more fuel, you're going to run out very, very quickly. So always keep some scrap on hand. Scrap is your currency here. Always keep some scrap on hand and buy fuel when you can. Now, it's a tough balancing act as far as getting to the end with just only 4 or 5 fuel left over. That would be optimal, so that you're not wasting a ton of fuel. But if you dilly-dally too much in the stage, the fleet will come up behind you and it will attack you. So you have to balance things out. So right from the start, I see there's a distress here. Sometimes distress is good, sometimes it's bad. That's part of the RNG of the game. That's actually part of the fun. So I want to go to this node here, but I also want to use up as much of this map as possible. So I'm actually going to go to this top one here first. That way if the fleet comes up, I can still outrun it. Otherwise, if I go to the distress and the fleet comes up, I can't backtrack at that point. So go to this one here first. And every time you jump, it's going to pause. So in this case here, there's a single ship here. They hail you. They could use some help. Blah, 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 blah. So basically, I can accept this or decline. So anytime they give you stuff, it's usually a good thing to do. So we accepted the fuel. And if we go to look at our map, now we basically just have to go here. Sometimes it'll be all an elaborate trap. Sometimes it's worth it. It's up to you if you actually want to go there. Now we actually got part of the reward here already, so if you're fine with the 3 fuel, you could just leave them be if you like. I'm going to go to the distress first, and then I'll go to the quest, and then I'll slowly work my way around these nodes to the exit, having a moderate amount of fuel, because I don't want to use up all of my fuel. I want to make sure I actually clear the level. That's the most important thing. You can always find shops and stuff to get more fuel. So first up with this distress here. So we have giant spiders, giant alien spiders. Now my experience with the game here, you deal with the spiders and a lot of time you're going to lose a crew member. So we have to really determine what the benefit's going to be here. Can you risk losing a crew member at this point in the game? For most people, being that this is like the first node you jump to, a lot of people will send in the spiders because if something goes south, they don't have a problem resetting the game at this point because you're literally only one move in. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. I don't mind running a skeleton crew for a few stages, but you ultimately do want to have crew members. So if I lose any of these guys, which is highly likely, I can handle it for now. So crew slowly creeps up in the clusters of creatures from behind. Without warning, the giant arachnids turn and charge. However, I stay in control and beat them back. A lot of times, you're going to find out Maxim is gone or Nikos is gone, and then that's it. They're dead, and you don't even get a reward out of it. So being that I held them at bay, I contact the owners and actually get a pretty sizable reward here. Not much in terms of scrap, but the fuel is always beneficial there. So I'll take it. And then I'm done here, so I'm just going to jump. Hit my quest marker. And, much to your dismay, ambushed by a rebel ship, walked right into a trap. Just like I mentioned, it could be a trap, it could be good. So they gave me 3 fuel. I only took basically 1 fuel to get here. It wasn't out of the way or anything. So now we're in our first encounter. So anytime you're in an encounter, always take stock of what you're up against and always come up with a game plan. So it's going to take you a little bit of playing the game to know what sort of weapons these are here. If you're dealing with beam weapons, if you're dealing with lasers, if you're dealing with missiles, you need to learn your weapon systems in order to truly have a good idea of what's going to happen. So in this case here, missiles always bypass shields. He has a level 1 shield. I can just bypass that. So we have to look at what's going to be our major threat here. In this case here, those weapons, being that he has dual weapons, I have to attack that first. So most people will say to attack the shield generator first so that your lasers can attack everything else. Being that he has 2 weapons, I feel like it's a safer bet to go after his weapon system first and then save the next missile for the shield. Now I don't have a ton of missiles to deal with in general, so we can't be just firing missiles off one by one by one. So let's get past this. Spacebar saves, or not saves, but pauses. Make sure we power our systems. We obviously need our weapons here. And then I don't need health right now. I don't need a regeneration pod, so I'm actually going to dump this into evasion here a little bit and see if I can get just a little bit of evasion. So I'm going to wait for my Artemis to charge, and hopefully I can soak what little bit of damage he actually has. So I'm going to let the pause go out. If you invest in sensors and such, you can see the power of his weapons. So now he just shot. My Artemis is not fully powered yet. So if both of these things hit and it hits my weapon system, for example, I might be a sitting duck right from the start, and I may actually have to retreat from this one, or risk taking a ton of damage. So I'm not going to worry about auto fire just yet. Being that both of his weapons fired before mine, I'm actually going to revise my tactics now, because I'm going to get my burst laser up before his, which fires 3 shots. So I'm going to use Artemis to hopefully take out the shield, and then fire 3 shots at his weapons. And at that point, he won't be able to attack me anymore. If I can then take my burst laser and pound away on his shields and just cycle between these two here, I should be able to beat him with hopefully just these first 2 shots dealing damage. So we'll see what happens when he hits me. So the first one took out my shield, and then he did 2 damage to my hull, which in the scheme of things isn't too bad, but obviously every little bit of damage hurts. So weapon number 1, weapon number 2, so I'm going to hit number 1 on my keyboard. I'm going to target the shield generator. Now if this misses, then things start to go a little bit south. We can't have a miss here. That's when things get ugly. So we want to wait for this to either hit or not hit before shooting my burst laser, because this will hit his shield. Ideally we want to avoid the shield. So it missed. So now I have 2 options. I can either wait a full another turn, or I can shoot my burst laser at his weapons array. So first laser is going to hit that, and then hopefully the 2 follow-up would hit his weapon. It's probably going to knock one of these down, but he might still be able to attack. But ultimately, when you miss with these missiles, it's not good, because it's a wasted missile and it doesn't do any damage. So, and ultimately one of my lasers missed. The second one hit the shield, and then I knocked his thing down by 1. So now things aren't looking that great. So I really have to hope that I don't take too much damage, and then ultimately the Artemis has to hit next time, or I might be forced to run away. So I soaked that one with my shield, which is good. Alright, so both my weapons are up now. We're going to do Artemis on the shield. Hits. His weapon is ready to fire, so now it's kind of a race. You see it turn green just in that little instance there. So he's going to shoot me, I'm going to shoot him. I should soak his attack with my shield, and he should actually lose 3 of his, and plus his shield is down, so I should be in the advantage here. And he actually missed. So now I'm actually going to not fire my Artemis again. I don't want to waste my missiles, so I'm going to actually just shoot burst laser at this weapons again. So I just basically pre-attacked, even though it's not ready. It's going to fire whenever it comes up. Okay, so he's powering up his FTL, which basically means he's trying to get away. So I know that I'm going to do some damage to this here, but can I get another hit off before he actually jumps? And you don't want enemies getting away from you. If they escape, they alert their fleet, and it basically makes things more difficult for you in the long run. So I'm hoping, in this case here, he's offering to surrender. Now, as you play through the game, you're going to be able to tell if a surrender offer is worth anything. In this case here, 11 scrap, 1 missile. So I'd get one of the missiles back, and then this drone part, which I don't need. Personally, if they don't offer a good amount of scrap or fuel, I usually don't take the deal. 11 scrap is almost nothing, and since I don't have any bonuses to scrap acquisition just yet, I don't want to take that. So I know that I'm probably going to be able to kill him, so I'm going to not accept surrender. And then I'm going to wait for my last ones to hit. Hopefully he doesn't get away. Should just be able to get him. Got him right as he was trying to jump. So, and now I got 26 scrap plus the 1 missile plus the 1 drone. So it's definitely better. And actually he almost got away. That was extremely close. Okay, so what do we do with our scrap now? We can look at our ship and we can spend scrap on stuff here. So in terms of the first two sectors you can get by with just your defense alone. So if I poured my excess scrap into another layer of shield, it costs 20. And if you look on the right, it costs 20 and 30 to get to the next barrier, and then 20 points here. So I need 50 total here and 40 here to power those two. So I need 90 total scrap to get another layer of shield. In a perfect world, you want to get to the very end with a full set of 4 shields. It's not cheap, but it's also extremely helpful. So I'm not actually going to buy that until I can afford both the shield pieces as well as the 2 power to power it, because I want to be able to power the shield as soon as I get to it. So I'll just leave this as of right now, jump to my next node, and determine where I want to go. So there's the fleet that I'm in here. They're trying to come at me now. So now we have to avoid the dilly-dallying, so I'm going to go, I think, I'm going to go down first. Does it really matter which way you go? It's all just RNG anyways. Alright, so received a message from a nearby station. Federation cruiser jumping into rebel territory. Quite the bold move. You quickly move to arm your weapons, but he continues. Lucky for you, we're not in support of the rebellion. So they give us some supplies, which I will gladly take. There's my 90. So, being that I'm not in a real hurt for shields in this first stage here, I'm actually going to save my scrap in case I encounter a merchant and I find a better weapon. So you always want to keep some scrap on hand. My general 0 point is 100 scrap to have on hand for emergencies. It's difficult to manage all of your scrap as well as building up your ship. And again, that's part of the fun of the game. Alright, so to stay ahead of the fleet, I'm just going to go here, because then I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total fuel. That'll take me down to a total of 14, which is decent enough going to the next one. So I know I can still get this node without being caught. Okay, so now we have another person here. So you could choose to buy slaves if you want. They're cheaper than buying the staff members or the crew members at merchants. But also, if you feel like you can take these guys on, he's only got 1 level of shield, 6 health. I know that I can defeat him, and he'll just give me one of his slaves for free then. So usually it's a pretty safe bet, unless they have a crew teleporter where they're going to board you this early. So I'm actually going to take them on. Looking at their weapons, they don't have anything overly dangerous. So I'm going to do the same basic principle as before. Actually, I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to go right for his weapons to start with, and then I'll deal with the shields on the second round. So round 1 is Artemis into his weapons. Takes them both out. And so just like that, I took 1 damage, which, like I said, you're going to take damage every now and then, but now he's offering a slave here. So I fired 1 missile and 1 burst laser, took 1 damage. Pretty reasonable trade-off for a crew member. So ultimately that 1 damage costs 2 scrap to repair. So I basically got this guy for 2 scrap, which compared to 30 or even 50 is a heck of a deal. So I'm going to accept that. And I'm actually going to put him somewhere else. So unless he's got a specialty, which he does not, I'm going to put him in my subsystem room for sensors, so I can get a little bit extra view of the enemy ships. Alright, so we're just ahead of the enemy fleet. Even if we'd have been inside here, this here doesn't take effect unless you start the node from inside there. So not a big deal. I can just slowly get away from it. So small ship, I can demand the surrender of their goods or avoid the ship. These are usually attack scenarios here. So you don't really get to see what you're up against, but being that it's only the first sector, I feel like I could probably take it on. It actually looks like a big ship, but it's really not that big. They have a terrible one little weapon, but they also have drones. So we don't know what drone it is until we actually see it. It could be an attack drone, it could be a defense drone, or it could even be like a boarding drone. We just don't know yet. But we'll probably use the same mechanics as last time. He doesn't even want to fight, actually. So with his FTL charging, basically the only way to stop that is if we shoot at his engines. If we do that, he's going to stick around. And his drone is actually a system repair drone. So he's not going to do much in the way of attacking because this is a pretty weak weapon. So I'm actually going to shoot at his engines. And then after that, I will slowly take out his weapons, and then he'll be pretty much defenseless. Notice he only got one shot. Actually, he dodged that, so I'm going to have to shoot his thing here. I didn't want to do that, but it is what it is. So, being that he only has a single attack, so this is anti-combat, I'm going to actually just take out his shields next. He'll never be able to break through my shield with only a single laser, so I can just slow play him to victory. The only thing I have to do is I have to make sure that that FTL stays down. If he jumps out of here, that's it. Then the mothership or the fleet is going to catch up to me. So, in fact, I don't even need to shoot at his weapons or his shield system, because the first one is always going to hit his shield and bring it down. Shoot, I forgot to have my auto fire up. Alright, there's a classic case of not paying attention to your fire or auto fire. So I let him get away, which it's not the end of the world considering where I'm at, but it's a good thing to show you exactly what happens when they do that. So it basically is going to make this thing here be able to get you faster. So it doesn't look like it impacted me too much just yet. Alright, so we have a danger zone here. So there is a pulsar activated, which is going to be problematic. Basically, it's a little electrical cannon that shoots from the planet's surface. And this will show up every now and then as you're playing through. So he has an ion weapon, which doesn't do damage, and he has a beam weapon, which does a good amount of damage. So we need to take out his weapons so that he can't attack me. So I'm just going to pour both of these on here. Alright, so getting by 2 fuel, 2 missiles, and 13 scrap, and being that there's an ion pulse on this stage here, I'm definitely going to accept this and get out of here, because I don't want to be dealing with the excess damage coming in. So there's the ion pulse. It freezes up one of your systems here. If that would have did that with the shield and he attacked me, then I run into major problems. So that thing can target pretty much anything. If it hits my engines, then I'm stuck here even longer. Fortunately, it doesn't do much in terms of damage unless you're fighting someone. Alright, so now slaver scum again. Do we want to send somebody over because they're slavers? No, you never want to give up your own crew. So we will attack them and try and get one of them to come on our side. So, same basic principle. He has 1 weak weapon and 1 beam weapon. I can't, my weapons are on lockdown so far. I can't even do anything with my burst laser here. So once that ion thing wears off, we'll power up that burst laser. Okay, power that up. Probably shouldn't have jumped so soon. Okay, so I hit that. His weapons are down. Now I'm just going to pound away with the burst laser. He should surrender. Should give me one of his slaves. And we'll be all set with no damage taken. He's actually not even going to get a chance to surrender here. I guess that's what it is. If he wants to go down with his ship, that's more power to him. Did. So they didn't offer anything up, but I got a pretty good reward. 3 fuel, 30 scrap. Nothing wrong with that. So now that I have a little bit of a buffer here, we could normally go in and spend some upgrades power here. The reason being is that when I go to the jump here, I'm not at a merchant yet. It's pretty common to run into merchants at the very start of stages, so I'll actually wait to see what it looks like when I jump first, and then we'll actually determine if we're going to spend some scrap here. So let's finish out of this sector. We'll start sector 2, and then we'll continue sector 2 in the next video. So we hit a merchant that was just in between sectors here, so he wants 2 of my missiles, 2 of my drone parts, and he's going to give me some excess military supplies. So, or they're looking for military supplies. He's going to upgrade my reactor. So if you're wondering what the reactor is how much total power you have. So these things here, in terms of total cost, being that I rely heavily on my missiles right now, getting rid of 2 of those is not worth the cost, because it only costs right now for those first couple of ticks 20 scrap to upgrade. So these here are worth far more than 20 scrap to me. I don't want to lose those. If it was just drone parts, I would gladly do it, but I can't afford to lose any missiles because I only have 7 right now. So I'm going to decline and hope there's a merchant in the next sector. So now this actually gets us to the first phase of what do we do as far as the sectors go. So there are civilians, there are hostiles, and there are nebulas. Each of them has a little bit different mechanic, as well as what is the title of the node that you're on. So if a civilian sector is usually the safest ones, you'll find the most merchants there. You'll find the most, encounters of just odd things, not necessarily fights, but quest markers is what you'll find in civilian sectors. Hostile ones, you will find more attacks in here, but you will also be rewarded with more scrap and usually weapons and such. You'll get a fair amount of scrap from civilian sectors, but maybe not so much as the rewards for beating fights in the hostile sectors. Nebulas, the only real benefit of the nebula sector is that the enemy tracking is much slower, which allows you to visit more nodes, which ultimately means collecting more scrap and winning more fights, but it also means costing you a lot more fuel as well. So ultimately I like to hit at least a couple of hostile sectors because they drop good weapons and there's a lot of encounters. The only way that I can do that is if I go up into the nebula first and then hit both of these, or if I go to a civilian and then come up that way. So right now I'm going to go to the civilian one first because I want to see if there is a vendor, and then if there's a vendor then I can buy some stuff and sell some stuff. I don't want to be in a nebula this early without much power and without much weapons. So let's take a quick look at this here. And this is what I was looking for. So right from the start there's already a store in place here. So we'll hit up the store, which is always a safe node, and see if there's anything that we can actually buy with our scrap here. So we can buy a drone, which comes with system repair, which is not something I'm interested in. I could buy cloaking, which is not really beneficial for this ship. And then I can buy a clone bay, which I'm not generally a fan of. It prevents your people from dying permanently from combat damage, but it's you also kind of have to micromanage it. Usually at this point here I'm looking for more powerful weapons. In this case here I don't see a ton of stuff that I can buy, so it would probably make better sense to fix my hull, which costs 6, and then maybe buy some extra materials here. So I definitely need missiles, so let me do this first. Missiles, I could probably do 3 of them. You don't want to waste all of your scrap. It's only got 2 left, so that's another 12. May as well just take them. And then in terms of fuel, keep me at 90 here. So at this point here, I'm good on weapons. So what I'll probably do, remember I wanted a 0 point. You'll find yourself a lot of times after you get out of a store, you're going to find that you wish you didn't buy anything. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to my ship, buy both of these, and buy the energy to power it. And so now I'm at a new 0 point. So I'm going to put both of these on, and that should actually prep me for anything that's going to come up. And once you know it, there's actually a store here then. So that's the buyer's remorse that you're going to get. So, alright, so we are going to stop this video here, and then we'll start a second video with the rest of Sector 2.